There's a woman in Ohio who spent $4,000 on a landscaper to install stone borders around her flower beds. 6 months later, her next-door neighbor did the exact same thing. Same style, same clean, professional look, and spent $0. Not on sale, not with a coupon. Zero. She used what was already sitting in her yard and at the edge of her woods. In this video, I'm giving you 5 completely free garden border ideas using nothing but rocks and logs you can find on your own property or for free nearby. I'm going deep on each one. How to source it, how to install it, and the mistakes that make free borders look cheap instead of intentional. Hit subscribe now. If you're not subscribed, the algorithm will absolutely bury it before it reaches you. Okay, let's get into it. Item 1. The Fieldstone edge, free from your own yard. If you've ever dug a garden bed and cursed at a rock you hit with your shovel, congratulations. You've been standing on free border material the entire time. Fieldstone, the irregular, weathered rocks native to most yards across the Midwest and Northeast, is one of the most sought-after materials in professional landscaping. Designers pay by the ton for stone that looks naturally unearthed, and you already have it, literally underground. The technique is simple. Dig along your bed edge about 4 to 6 inches deep and set stones so 2/3 of each one is buried, with only the top third exposed. This is the step almost every DIYer skips, and it's why their homemade borders look like a pile of rocks instead of a border. Burying the majority of the stone creates a root that holds it in place through frost heave and rain, and it visually reads as though the stone grew out of the earth naturally, which is exactly the effect high-end landscapers charge for. The fact most people don't know, bigger is not better here. Landscape designers actually prefer mixing 3 stone sizes: fist-sized, football-sized, and 1 or 2 larger anchor stones every 6 feet, because uniform rock sizes read as bought in bulk, while variant sizes read as found in nature. That single detail is the difference between a border that looks free and one that looks expensive. But Fieldstone only works if your yard actually has rock in the soil. So what do you do if your yard is rock-free? That's where item 2 comes in, and it might be an even better material than stone. Item 2. The buried log border, the one landscapers call log edging. Every fall, homeowners across the country pay tree removal companies to haul away fallen branches and logs. And then, in spring, some of those same homeowners pay a landscaper to install natural wood edging that costs $8 to $15 per linear foot. The material is identical. The only difference is who profits from it. To build this border, you want logs roughly 4 to 8 inches in diameter, cut to consistent lengths, laid end to end or slightly overlapping along your bed edge, then partially buried the same way as Fieldstone, about 1/3 of the log's width sunk into a shallow trench. Cedar, locust, and oak hold up best because they're naturally rot-resistant. Softer woods like pine will still last 3 to 5 years, which is genuinely fine for a free border, since nature is going to hand you replacement material every single storm season anyway. Here's the fact almost nobody mentions. As these logs slowly decompose over the years, they actually feed the soil directly beneath your border with organic matter and beneficial fungi, which is a technique called hugelkultur in permaculture circles. So this isn't just a free border, it's a border that improves your soil every year it sits there, which is something a stone or plastic edge can never do. Now, logs and stone are great on flat ground, but what about slopes, curves, or beds that need to look more architectural? Item 3 solves that, and it's the one most viewers tell me they wish they'd known about years ago. Quick pause. I want to ask you something. Look out your window right now. Does your yard have a slope, a rock pile, or a brush pile you've been meaning to deal with? Comment yes if it does, because I promise you, what you think of as yard waste is actually free landscaping material. And if this is genuinely saving you money, do me a favor and hit subscribe, because every video on this channel is built around the same rule. Your yard already has what you need, you just haven't been shown how to see it yet. That's the whole point of this channel, and I don't want you missing the next one. Item 3. The stacked rock terrace edge for slopes and curves. If your yard has any kind of slope, flat border edging is fighting a losing battle against gravity and erosion every single time it rains. This is where stacking, rather than laying rocks flat, becomes the professional move. A stacked rock terrace edge uses flat-faced stones layered like a dry stack wall, 2 to 3 stones high, angled slightly backward into the slope. The key technique landscapers use is called batter. Each layer is set back about 1/2 inch from the one below it, leaning gently into the hill rather than standing perfectly vertical. This does two things. It uses gravity to hold the wall in place instead of fighting it, and it lets water drain through the gaps instead of pooling and washing the whole structure out after a heavy rain. Flat stones from creek beds, quarries near construction sites, with permission, or even broken concrete from a torn-up driveway all work beautifully here. The surprising fact, this exact stacking method is thousands of years old and is called a dry stone wall. No mortar, no cement, nothing holding it together but gravity and friction. Some of these walls in the UK have stood for over 300 years without a single drop of glue. If it can survive 3 centuries British weather, it can survive your backyard. Once your borders are physically solid, there's still one thing most people get wrong that makes even a perfect border look sloppy, and item 4 fixes it in under 20 minutes. Item 4. The log round mini border, the designer's secret. This is the one I promised you. Landscape designers call this log rounds or pookie edging, and it is, without exaggeration, one of the most Instagram photographed garden border styles, and almost nobody realizes it costs nothing to make. You take logs and cut them into rounds or cookies, roughly 4 to 6 inches thick, then stand them on end, buried a few inches deep, side by side along your bed edge like a row of wooden coins. The visual effect is dramatic compared to how little effort it takes. Standing the rounds vertically rather than laying logs flat creates a rhythmic, repeating pattern that reads as intentional, custom-built edging rather than leftover yard debris. Vary the heights slightly, some 6 inches tall, some 8, some 10, and the border gets visual texture instead of looking like a fence. This is the exact technique behind those expensive-looking wood borders you see in high-end garden magazines and Pinterest boards. The fact that surprises people most is because the rounds are standing on end rather than lying flat, they actually dry out faster after rain, which means they resist rot significantly longer than horizontally laid logs, sometimes doubling their lifespan. So this designer technique isn't just prettier, it's also the more durable way to use wood. There's one more idea left, and it's the one that ties every single technique in this video together. Because it's not really about a border at all. It's about a mindset shift. One more quick pause before the last one. Tell me honestly, how many bags of mulch or store-bought edging have you bought in the last 2 years that you now realize you could have gotten for free? Drop the number in the comments. I genuinely want to know, and I read every single comment on this channel. And if you've made it this far, you clearly care about a garden that looks great without draining your wallet. So subscribe now, because free landscaping content like this doesn't get pushed to you automatically unless you're subscribed. I don't want you missing the next no-spend garden hack. Item 5. The mixed rock and log border, combining everything. The final idea isn't a new material, it's a new mindset. The most visually striking, professional-looking borders almost never use just one material. They combine stone and wood in the same line, breaking up the monotony that makes single-material borders look repetitive and cheap after a few feet. Alternate a cluster of 3 stones, then a section of log rounds, then a single large anchor stone, then repeat, following no exact pattern because true randomness is what reads as natural to the human eye. Landscape architects call this material rhythm, and it's one of the most closely guarded techniques in professional design because it's the difference between a border that looks like a kit from a hardware store and one that looks custom designed for your specific yard. The trick is to let one material dominate about 60% of the border while the second material fills the remaining 40%. An even 50-50 split actually looks more artificial than an intentional imbalance. And here's the fact that ties this entire video together. Professional landscapers don't actually see rocks and logs as cheap materials you settle for. They see them as the highest value materials available because unlike manufactured edging, no 2 pieces are identical, which means no 2 borders in the world will ever look the same. What you've been calling free this whole video, they call irreplicable. You've had access to the most exclusive landscaping material there is this entire time without knowing it. So here's the pattern running underneath every single idea in this video. Fieldstone, buried logs, stacked terraces, log rounds, mixed borders, none of them required a single trip to the store. What they required was looking at your yard differently. That branch pile you've been meaning to burn, that rock you keep hitting with your shovel, that fallen tree from last year's storm. None of it was trash. It was inventory. The gardeners who build the most beautiful, expensive-looking yards on a budget of zero aren't the ones with the most money. They're the ones who stopped seeing their yard as something to buy things for and started seeing it as something that already provides. That's the real shift. Once you see it, you can't unsee it, and you'll start looking at every fallen branch and every rock in your yard completely differently. If this video changed the way you look at your own backyard, next week I'm showing you how to turn kitchen scraps into a border feature that literally feeds your soil while it edges your beds. Another $0 project, and honestly one of my favorites on this channel. Make sure you're subscribed so it lands in your feed the moment it drops. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. Go take one more look at your yard. I promise you'll see it differently now. I'll see you in the next one.